Sylvia Solis Shaw on behalf of the City of Santa Monica in opposition.
Kyle Jones with Sierra Club California in opposition.
Amy Trainer with the West Marin Environmental Action Committee in strong opposition for all the reasons stated. Thank you.
Anyone else in opposition? Questions from the Assembly? Mr. Stone.
Thank you. I am sorry to hear that in Huntington Beach the bag ban is not working, but just to let you know that in other parts of California it's had a very significant impact. Around the Monterey Bay, it was over 5 years ago that I first brought it to the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors, and in fact, just beginning the conversation, Save Our Shores, which does the beach cleanups around the Monterey Bay, noticed immediately a significant reduction in the amount of plastic bags that their beach cleanup folks were picking up. Since then, and it's a much stronger, by the way, ordinance than what the SB 270 was last year. Both counties around the Monterey Bay and most all the jurisdictions have adopted plastic bag bans, taking responsibility for it. But I think the time to go back to individual city ordinances is really not an appropriate step. In fact, as we were working through the legislation, the grocers, Macy's, a lot of the other companies that were dealing with stores in multiple jurisdictions were asking us to go to the level of a statewide ban because they're very, very frustrated at the different implementations of plastic bag bans across the state. So they were asking us, please, could we just do a statewide ban? In fact, the general counsel of Macy's said he had a map on his wall that showed all the different plastic bag bans around the country that they're having to deal with. They wanted consistency. They were very, very much hoping that California would take that step. So what we did last year was long and hard fought, yes, but I think the policy behind it was well established and in evidence, in science, and in the impact and the actual adoption that people across California are sort of expecting from those bans. So I'm sorry, but I can't support your bill.
Mr. Chair, if I can respond to that. Several things I think are worth responding to within the statements that were made. One is in regards...
So is this, hang on a sec. I'm going to give you an opportunity here in a second, but take Mr. Wood and then you can respond to him in your close, if that's okay with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to comment, in the county I live in, there was a concerted effort city by city to kind of look at this. We realized that a city by city approach simply wasn't working really well. So I was been involved for almost 7 years to get an entire county through our Sonoma County Waste Management Agency, JPA, to do this en masse. And so by doing this as a group, I think we made a very strong statement that our county is of 9 cities and the county are firmly behind this. So I'm sorry, I just can't support the bill.
Mr. McCarty.
Thank you. Not to add on, but I don't support this as well. Our city of Sacramento was about to adopt a local ordinance. We took a timeout because the AB 270 was about to reach the governor's desk, and that was state law. But just one thing to add is the waste facility in the city of Sacramento was in my old council district. And I went out there, and every day they have to shut down the equipment and have men and women climb up there and pull out plastic bags out of the machinery for the MRF type thing. And an estimated loss of productivity of the city every year is well over $100,000 just from bags getting stuck in the recycle stuff. So there is a cost of local government as well. I think it makes sense to have this as well as a statewide solution.
I think that really tees up my comments as well, because I think ultimately the people who pay for the use of plastic bags, this many plastic bags in our waste stream, is ratepayers, because it's local governments having to bear the cost, breaks down MRF equipment, it's difficult to process, and ratepayers end up paying the money. And so I think this is important both from the standpoint of saving local governments and ultimately ratepayers funds, and secondly from the viewpoint that I as a consumer should have the freedom not to pay for other people trashing the planet, right? The way that the system is right now the cost of bags are built into the grocery prices when you go shopping. So when I pay money in the grocery store, or any of you pay money in the grocery store, you're paying for all the people who get single-use bags. Whether or not you use single-use bags, you're paying for them. And if we really believe in consumer choice, we should believe that people should be able to make that decision for themselves. And if you're going to be responsible and bring it, you shouldn't have to be forced to bear the cost of other people's single-use bags. I think that's why this and the following bill are problematic. I also dispute the idea that this is not a waste problem out there. I spend a whole lot of time in the ocean and a whole lot of time on the Delta on kayaks and stand-up paddleboards and surfboards, and I encounter plastics all the time, and far more actually in inland waterways than I do on the coast. And so this is a waste stream that is plaguing our inland waterways. It's an issue on the coast, and it's definitely an issue in the totality of the oceans, and we can do something about it while still giving consumers the option to make the right kind of decision by supporting the current law and turning down this bill. Any other comments from the committee? Mr. Harper, would you like to close?
Thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to respond. First of all, it looks like we've heard through the committee that there are places where Monterey Bay, where they feel that the local control aspect is working for them versus other places where it's not working. In terms of the consistency, the reality is with the local ordinances, the same retailers that were complaining about consistency on the state level asked for the local ordinances. Our local ordinance was asked for by the same group that was complaining that there was a patchwork of different laws around the entire state. I'm sorry, but you can't complain about a patchwork that's inconsistent when you were the one causing the inconsistencies among the laws, among the localities around the state of California. I'm sorry, but it just doesn't cut it. Additionally, I think it's important to point out that one thing has happened significantly since this bill was passed just last year, and that's the referendum. And this legislature, unless this committee passes this legislation, will not have the opportunity to be able to say whether they agree with the hundreds of thousands who signed the petition to reject this law. If this committee rejects this, then the legislature on the floor will not have the opportunity. So if it's will of the committee to stop this here, then all the folks will not have the opportunity to be able to vote on this in the state assembly or the state senate. The referendum is absolutely key, and so that I'm sorry, but you can't say this has been rehashed 7 times within this committee when the voters decided that they were going to put it up for a vote entirely. We have the opportunity to be able to respond. We have the opportunity to respond today, this afternoon. Of course, there are many new members of the state legislature who have not had the opportunity to be able to vote on this, and if we bottle this up here, they won't have the opportunity to be able to do so. Additionally, I want to point out that not one person has come forward to justify the bizarre, the strange, and the unusual, which is the paper bag fee, or is it a paper bag tax, or is it a paper bag penalty, or is it a paper bag incentive? There is just no justification for that part of this bill. If you should vote no on this, you do have the opportunity with my bill 191. But I would like to respectfully ask for your aye vote on this legislation.
So there has been a motion by Dolly and a second by Harper. Secretary, please call the roll.
Assemblymember Williams?
No.
Williams, no. Dolly? Aye. Dolly, aye. Garcia? No. Garcia, no. Hadley? No. Hadley, no. Harper?
Aye.
Harper, aye. McCarty? No. McCarty, no. Rendon? No. Rendon, no. Stone? No. Stone, no. Wood? Wood, no. Got 2 aye votes.
You have 2 votes. The bill fails. You have one more bill to
And,
present?
Mr. Chair, if I could ask for reconsideration.
Of course.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I'm here today to present AB 191. This bill will repeal the 10-cent per paper bag fee on paper grocery bags to alleviate the burden on the working class consumers. The paper bag fee will hit working Californians every time they go to the grocery store. Although some Californians that participate in WIC and CalFresh are exempt from the paper bag fee, the working poor do not qualify for either program will be hit the hardest. The paper bag fee will cost Californians approximately $613 million a year. This money will go back to the retailer and won't be used to benefit Californians. Let me underscore, this does not benefit coastal cleanup. This does not go to any study that can show whether it's effective or not. This goes to the retailers. This higher fee comes at a time when the cost for meat, eggs, and other staples are rising. Shoppers want relief from higher grocery bills, not higher costs. For these reasons, I respectfully ask for an aye vote and for a discussion on this often ignored part of this law.
Good afternoon, Chairman Williams. Kathy Lynch, representing the American Forest and Paper Association. We represent 54,000 employees here in California and 480 manufacturing facilities. I don't think it's a secret that we did oppose the original SB 270. Leaving the plastics issue aside, the paper industry has a success story to tell. We are renewable, recyclable, and a sustainable package. You've had a lot of conversation about compostable items today. Paper is also compostable. We have an over 50% recycling rate on our paper bag and an overall paper industry recycling rate over 60% and moving even higher. This is a tax on our product. The cost of a nice handled bag that you see at some of the nicer grocery stores is anywhere between 4 and 5 cents. So this is, in essence, a tax on our product. A lot of the high-end grocery stores already were offering paper bags and had phased out plastics bags before the ordinances, before the bills. They're now forced to tax their customers for these paper bags. So that seems highly unfair to us. This is an issue also where none of the money is going back into the infrastructure of recycling programs at the local level. Our industry, to get to the 75% goal, has a very good story to tell. We've been in partnership with local government, with the state of California, and unfortunately, when the money doesn't go to those recycling programs at the local level, it's going to be hard to get to those next levels of recovery. So we think, unfortunately, SB 270 was a bad model for the paper industry, and we appreciate Assemblyman Harper bringing this bill. Thank you.
Mike Rogie with the California Manufacturers and Technology Association in support. The paper bag industry and its service providers employ conservatively 1,000 jobs in California. SB 270 will negatively affect those jobs with the hope of possibly adding a few hundred jobs at best in heavy plastic bag manufacturing. Even if you don't like or appreciate plastic bags, CMTA firmly believes that placing a tax on paper bags makes no sense whatsoever. There are and have been grocers like Trader Joe's who have only provided paper bags for years. SB 270 ignored the fact that paper bags are reusable, as Kathy said, compostable, recyclable, have recycled content, and sustainable. As I said earlier, it is hard to find a more environmentally friendly product. SB 270 punishes the paper industry that years ago invested heavily in infrastructure in order to help California meet its 50% recycled goals. In 2012, the overall paper recovery rate exceeds 65%. Paper bags are a highly sought-after commodity in the recycled paper markets. While paper bags are exceptionally green, there's no infrastructure in place for recycling the heavier-duty plastic bags contemplated as a primary replacement. CMTA urges you and your committee to support AB 191. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members, good afternoon. David Wolf with the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. We're in support of this bill as well. And before I forget, the National Federation of Independent Business also wanted me to add on their behalf that they're in support of both AB 190 and 191. It's a good question, members. Is it a tax? Is it a fee? Is it a charge? You might be able to say it is a regulatory fee if the money went to recycling, if the money went to conservation, if the money went to studying the use of plastic bags, if the money went to providing additional resources for renewable bags, which I guess on some level it does, but mostly it doesn't. This is a tax, members, and it's a tax at a time when we're in a high tax state. Highest income tax, highest sales tax, highest gas tax, highest corporation tax in the western United States. And one other point, members, and this is somewhat personal for me. I need paper bags in the grocery store. It is very difficult for me as a person with a disability to pack bags out to my car, to pack bags to my house. Plastic bags don't necessarily do it for me. They break. Paper bags do it. And they work. And I need more paper bags because I can't pack heavy things and put it in one bag. This bill is expensive for me, and it's expensive for other people with disabilities. It was an argument that we made in our veto letter last year, so it's not without precedent. And I mean, I'd urge members to consider that. It is something that gets lost when individuals in support say, oh, you can just pack the small items out and you don't even need a bag. That's not true for me. So I'd urge members to kind of consider that new angle as I ask for your support.
Motion by Mr. Dolly. Second by Mr. Hadley.
Yes, support.
Other witnesses in support, just state your name, your affiliation, and your support.
Right. Mr. Chairman, Brian Lundgren on behalf of the Orange County Board of Supervisors in support.
Witnesses in opposition.
Mr. Chair, members, once again, Mark Murray with the Environmental Group Californians Against Waste. Obviously, this committee is well aware that this specific question of the charge on paper bags was in fact the most debated part of this proposal last year. How was it going to be structured? How much was it going to be? Should it be 25 cents? Should it be 10 cents? Should it be 5 cents? So I guess just let me run through the facts. Number one, this is not a tax. We don't have to speculate on whether this is a tax because the courts have already ruled on this question. Taxpayers group sued Los Angeles County on their proposal for a 10 cents charge, the identical 10-cent charge that is in the state law, and the courts ruled that it was not a tax, but it was in fact the cost of providing the bags. This is a bag, paper bag with the handles. This is the bag that you find at almost any grocery store in the United States. All of the food cooperatives in the United States combined their resources so they could make a single purchase for these bags, to purchase this recycled content, reusable paper bag that meets all the standards in the law. All of the co-ops in the United States are paying 10.5 cents per bag for this bag. This is the cost for this exact bag. Now, those stores don't get 10 cents on all of those bags. They only get 10 cents from the consumers that are not exempt from paying that charge under existing law. Los Angeles County is accounting for all of the money that is coming in and going out as a result of their identical policy. 47% of the consumers that are asking for a paper bag in Los Angeles County are WIC SNAPS customers. So grocery stores are only receiving the 10 cents on 53% of the bags. Now, the good news is that we know from Los Angeles County, from San Mateo County, from San Francisco that has been monitoring the implementation that consumers are saving significant dollars on their grocery bills as a result of this policy. This policy is causing consumers to use less bags. Gone is the $200 to $250 million a year that we've been spending on the plastic bags, and we've reduced the amount that consumers are paying for paper bags. So consumers are actually saving money as a result of this policy. Now, honestly, the author, respectfully, the author has made reference to $613 million. I've not seen any reference to $613 million as the cost of paper bags. Now, there is an organization called the Reason Foundation, which is funded by the Koch brothers. They did reference $613 million in their report, so it's possible that's where that came from. But that's not the cost of paper bags. That's
You're
the
going to have
projected
to
cost.
wrap up testimony.
Sure enough. $613 million is their speculation of the cost of providing reusable bags to consumers in California. Their assumption is that California consumers will purchase 121 reusable bags every year at a cost of $50 per household. That's where the $613 million came from. Urge your no vote on this measure.
I'll be brief. Jenna Price on behalf of the California League of Conservation Voters. We are in opposition to this bill. Just to kind of piggyback off of what Mr. Murray said, when LA County's plastic bag ban went into effect with a 10-cent paper bag charge, an estimated 264 million plastic bags were eliminated each year, and capped paper bag usage. By comparison, Portland, Oregon's bag ban, which had zero paper bag charge, increased paper bag usage by 491% at an estimated cost of nearly $5 million. If this bill passed, California grocery shoppers' costs would increase by as much as $687 million each year. For those reasons, we ask for your no vote. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members, Josh Malone for Heal the Bay. We've been involved in this issue for many, many years and very, very aware of the fiscal implications of this. Just want to make a simple statement I didn't hear really reiterated too much, and that is if these bags were a lot less expensive or free, there definitely would be a diversion to these bags and we wouldn't incentivize the recyclable bags. That's the whole logic of at least paying the actual cost of the bag rather than giving it away free. It was a policy that was understood by the legislature in the very, very early versions of these bills 5 or 6 years ago, and I think the policy still stands. We urge a no vote.
So O'Donnell has it.
Victoria Rome with NRDC in opposition.
Jason Schmelzer on behalf of the California chapters of SWANA in opposition.
Kyle Jones with Sierra Club California in opposition.
Amy Traynor with the Westburn Environmental Action Committee in strong opposition.
Sue Vang, I've been asked by Clean Water Action to indicate their opposition.
Sylvia Solis on behalf of the City of Santa Monica in opposition. Thank you.
To the committee. Any questions, comments? Mr. Stone.
Well, and to answer the question, Mr. Harper, that you brought up at the end, the reason I think that you didn't hear from us on the fee in the previous bill was because you had a second bill around the fee. And I'm very happy to address that because around the Monterey Bay, we learned that 10 cents is not even enough. Part of the benefit of having this policy, and especially a consistent policy across the state, is to change behavior and get people to focus more on getting away from the single-use bags, which is why, as I mentioned before, as soon as the ordinance was proposed, people's behavior was in fact starting to change. And what we found was, and we started our ordinance in Santa Cruz County with the 10-cent fee and the option to go up to 25 cents. Most of the cities, by the time the cities had adopted a similar ordinance, we had been through that process. And we found that with the 25 cents, with the additional amount, we were changing behavior much more significantly. So the poorest communities, when they started to adopt the plastic bag ban and put the fee in, went straight to the 25 cents because they knew they were getting the most impact out of the ordinance by that 25 cents. The 10 cents, again, was very hotly debated here in the legislature last year, what it meant, why it worked. But I think on the ground where the ordinances have been successful and allowed to be successful, you'll see that oftentimes the 10-cent fee is really not enough, and it's not hurting the poorest of communities. Changing that behavior using multi-use bags is a benefit across the board. So I'm afraid I can't support this bill.
And I will reiterate that I do think it's important to give people some measure of choice in this. I do think that there is choice here. I can understand why you need to use paper bags, but it shouldn't be my responsibility to pay for it. It should not be an individual consumer's responsibility that brings reusable bags with them to a store to pay for other people's amount of waste. This is a recovery fee because I'm sure there are some retailers that are able to get this for under 10 cents, but the vast majority of us cannot get these bags for under 10 cents in the open market. And frankly, I'm with Mr. Stone. I think a higher fee would be more in order and work better, but I think I didn't get everything I wanted in this, but I'm not trying to reopen a previous decision of the legislature, and I fear that that's exactly what this bill seeks to do, and for that we have a no recommendation. Mr. Hadley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As somebody who just voted no on AB 190, I am going to vote yes on AB 191. And I want to explain why. I was not in the legislature in 2014 when the original legislation was passed. But from the outside, this is the kind of legislation that makes Californians very cynical about Sacramento. It's very easy for well-organized groups to converge on this capital, whether they are retailers, whether they're organized labor, whether they're environmental activist groups, and decide on a policy that all three of those groups like that impose costs on the consumers of California. Only in this capital can it seem that something that retailers have been giving away for free for 120 years, imposing a cost on that item as a matter of law, not as a matter of competition, is some form of social progress. So I come from a district where several cities in the district had either passed plastic bag bans or were in deliberations around plastic bag bans when the statewide legislation was being discussed. And that whole topic was discussed here in the deliberation around AB 190. And as I previously noted, I voted no on AB 190 just now, but I do oppose the use of the power of this capital to impose a minimum charge on a viable, recyclable, compostable, economically viable product that has been given away for free competitively for 120 years. Thank you.
Mr. Jolly?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am going to support your bill. I'm really disappointed in the last legislation that the money didn't go to clean up the environment. Would have been a lot more palatable for me. Thank you.
Any other members of the committee? I will say that if people reuse the paper bags, there won't be a problem because they won't have to pay for additional paper bags. So if it's truly reusable, then let them reuse the ones they have now. Just as an amusing anecdote, I, like many people, use plastic bags for other uses like trash. I thought it would be a fun experiment to see how many years it took me of not getting plastic bags at the grocery store to run out of plastic bags for trash. It took me 9 years. And then it took me another 7 years to run out of the ones my father gave me from his house. There are a lot of plastic bags out there for a lot of uses. I just don't think we need more of them. I think we probably have enough, and we can let individuals choose when they need to buy paper and plastic bags. With that, the chair's recommendation is no. There is a motion and a second. Secretary, please call the roll.
Thank you. If I could close.
Yes. Mr. Harper, you can have a close.
Thank you. While I understand that some people would not like to reopen this argument and be able to examine this bargain that was made by the legislature in the previous session, the reality is the voters have spoken, and the voters do want us to rediscuss this issue and do want us to re-examine this issue, and in fact are very often shocked when they are, the illumination is brought upon this part of the law. Go back? No. It's in suspension right now. There is no go back. You have the opportunity to be able to say yay or nay on this bargain that was made in the previous session. In terms of justifications for SB 270 and the plastic bag bans, we're a plastic bag gyre in the Pacific Ocean and problem with turtles ingesting plastic bags. Well, the reality is we still have yet to hear about a paper bag gyre in the Pacific Ocean as justification for taking away people's freedoms, whether it's their rights as individual consumers or whether that's their rights as shopkeepers. There's been no allegations of turtles choking on paper bags. And in fact, we've illuminated that while Sacramento may have an issue with wastewater facilities with plastic, there is not an issue with paper bags in terms of gumming up the waterworks in terms of our facilities. This portion of the law is nothing but what people object to, which is more government interference in their daily personal lives. Some people call them nanny state laws because some people want everyone else to just simply model their own behavior rather than letting them come to the conclusions on their own with education, debate, etc. This is simply trying to reorder the daily lives of individuals as the legislature sees fit. I think this was brought up, that this was really an end run around the constitutional protections against tax increases that should have a vote of the people. And that's the reality of why this doesn't go to any benefit of coastal cleanup or studying the issue. The reality is this fee directly goes to corporations and not coastal cleanup. You have to decide whether this fits within your conscience as something that you want to be able to support. Your chances today to eliminate this corporate giveaway. The citizens are outraged about this part of the law. Go back? No. We have the opportunity today to decide what we want to go forward with. I ask for your aye vote respectfully.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Assemblymember Williams?
No.
Williams, no. Dolly?
Aye.
Dolly, aye. Garcia? Hadley?
Aye.
Hadley, aye. Harper?
Aye.
Harper, aye. McCarty?
No.
McCarty, no. Rendon? Rendon, no. Stone? Stone, no. Wood? Wood, no. 3 aye votes.
3 aye votes. There's one person absent, but the bill will still fail.
Can I still ask for reconsideration?
Of course.
Thank you.